Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk, von Mensch zu Mensch.
Welcome to Team Rabbit Hole Edition 192 with Alex Vitillo, Web of Love. Wrapping up 2020, what a year. Webs from the heart connecting with everything. What is the best way to dream in the dream? Join the team as we have Alex back on, an international traveler, healer, and mystic who facilitates others in their journey towards wholeness. Well met once again.
Thank you. So excited to be with you again. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, dude, you're cool. And you're definitely Team Rabbit Hole, so I figured we'd get you back on here. That was an interesting intro track. It felt like Mulan on psychedelics or something. Very cool track, though, and Raphael for what it was. So what we typically do here, as you know, is reduce the number, which is 192, to a numerological reduction, which is 3. In this case, for the major arcana, that would be the Empress card, not surprising. I fully embrace life's rich fecundity. The Empress card is saying, everything is possible. Allow abundance into your life. Tap into the creative flow of the universe. Start something nurturing. Raphael, what card do you have?
We have angel number 6. This is a seraphim by the name of Lelahel. It is the angel of light and understanding. The laudable god, the archangel, is Metatron, associations Aries, Venus, Fire, Jade, 4 of Wands, Keter, the musical note C, and the affirmation is, I am learning to appreciate the things that really matter. This angel is invoked against people under negative influence and to obtain enlightenment in performing acts of healing. He masters the arts, fortune, science, and love.
Well, I don't know about y'all. That's ironically pretty resonant with a Venus-ruled Empress card. Alex, what, if anything, resonated for you between the Empress and that angel card?
Well, as always, I say there's no coincidence, right? I live by synchronicities and pretty much everything. Venus, it's my ruler. I've got a book on my table as we speak that's got a word light. I've got an angel crystal in front of me. So everything resonates. I'm a healer, right? So mix the two together. We talked about the web of love in the title of this episode. I think every single aspect has pretty much been touched. I love jade as well as a crystal. I've got a dragon jade just here on my right. So yeah, couldn't be more precise.
And it's funny because the Empress card is not only about love and nurturing, but also like prosperity and wealth. Venus rules love and money. So it's kind of ironic there that they are not ironic, synchronistic maybe is a better word. So Alex, kind of fill us in. We were on a few months ago. What has your world been like since that time?
Well, it's to keep along your lines. Last time we were talking about abundance and prosperity, and I think the word that Raphael just mentioned associated with the angel is also fortune. And of course, you've got goddess. For me, when I hear fortune, is goddess Fortuna, the goddess of abundance and the wheel, spinning the wheel. And when the universe spins the wheel, I always, me and I guess everybody else, wishing the wheel to stop on a good spot, right? Spot to stop on something that is prosperous and abundant. So I think this ties in together again with what we were talking about last time I've been on, and the evolution in a sense that I've realized, and don't know if you remember, maybe not, but part of my work is to open entrepreneurs to receive abundance and prosperity. And
I remember you
so,
talked to me privately at one point. You said, let me hit you up, and I hit you up, and we had a little talk about what was blocking my abundance beliefs and stuff. So I definitely remember.
Yes, cool. So what came out of there as well, working with more and more people, is that as they open up to abundance, the love also opened up. And for some, it was, love of the universe, really reconnecting with sometimes with star beings, sometimes with, what am I really here to do? What can I shine my light? And also on the 3D level, just either to finding love in terms of romantic or enhancing their current relationship. So again, it's no coincidence that Venus rule love and money. I think these two go very well together.
Exactly. So you're holding down the fort in London, right? Still hanging out there. What's been going on in your neck of the woods? I think there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of hurry up and wait since we've talked. I don't think many people have done much traveling, or left the house much. So I don't know if you have much to report. But it sounds like you're doing quite a bit of, advocacy and help on the internet. So kind of fill me in. What's your life been like since we talked last?
Since we talked last, it's definitely got colder here in London, and we've been through a second lockdown. I have to say, I feel, again, really blessed because I live by this huge park that is very natural. It's more like a forest, and who's got a very strong ley line. So it's a place that attracts a lot of shamans, a lot of rituals. And so even though there may be a lot of fear outside in the world, and when I do connect on the internet, I feel those fears, I see the anxiety. When I step out of my house, I don't feel that. There is this huge gift from Mother Nature, that still make people calm and very relaxed and still smiling, which is, I think, a real blessing for, compared to what is happening in other parts of the world. I'm Italian. I haven't been able to return to Italy, and this is going to be a Christmas in a very long time that I don't spend with my parents in Italy. And there, the measures have been quite extreme. So I could say I'm really blessed.
That's what's up. I'm glad you're making it through with a park nearby. I'm in the middle of Colorado, so even though there's a lot of, stuff on the news and I guess protocols people are, doing, I have a lot of open space myself, nature and stuff that I can go walk around in, and not feel like it feels like I'm in my own world anyway. So this almost, in a selfish, weird, jaded way, this doesn't feel like it's affecting me, except when I go shopping for food. It's like wear a mask kind of thing. But aside from that, it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life here, so that's kind of cool. So we have titled this episode Web of Love, and you were saying in the green room how, maybe you want to recapitulate what we were saying, but it sounded almost like a Empress card meets Indra's net from the heart chakra kind of concept. What is the Web of Love, and let's start kind of talking about that.
Thank you. I want to give a little bit of a background story because
Oh, for sure.
I think, again, synchronicities. So I do this healing, this journey, this shamanic journey for the web of life. So the web of life for shamans is the universe, the energy of all there is. And once a month, I journey with my power animals, my spirit guide, specifically to send healing to the world. And I record my journeys on the phone. And this time I wanted to send the recording of my journey to my mentor, my shaman. And I was typing the web of life healing journey. And my phone, it happens many, many times to me. I say, I'm an oracle. This is another conversation we can have. I've been an oracle many times. And as I type, the words seem changing. Did it ever happen to you, Jim?
Yeah, I've had a lot of kind of glitches. I've typed in a word and it came up with the word euthanasia once, and I was like, "What the fuck? I did not mean euthanasia." So, but yes, what you're saying is kind of like digital glitches that kind of benefit the magic of the moment, it sounds like.
Yes. So for me, sometimes I type and the whole sentence changed, like boom, like you see in those movies, the glitching, the animation, and something else comes. So I was just typing healing for the web of life. I saw on my phone healing for the web of love. And I thought, okay, what is this? This is not a coincidence. So I journey it again, and I've asked to my spirit guides, hey, am I onto something? What is this web of love? Was it just a glitch, or can you show me? And you can guess it wasn't just a glitch. So I was shown this old image of a web, but instead of the web of life this time, it was a web starting from people's heart. And it was so beautiful because you can imagine, I wish I knew how to draw really well, because what I saw in my mind through this journey is so difficult to put on words and even on paper, because I don't know how to draw so well. But it was such a beautiful and deep representation of our reality, I think, our reality showing up. And of course, these strands were not just physical, there could have been strands to nature, strands to past lovers you totally forgot, strands to how you feeling towards your physical body, your sexuality, for instance, your friends, your children, and that was connected to, I saw, so the web of life, the universe having a heart, which I call the cosmic heart. And the cosmic heart is sending energy to the human heart, and from the human heart through what you create consciously and subconsciously, but it starts from you. Then you have all these interactions in your physical reality. And I thought it was a very beautiful representation of what we create as human beings. And specifically when there is something again in your life that you're not too sure or is not going accordingly to how you want things to go, well, what are you creating? Are you actually creating something from the heart? Is it a healthy connection or less so? And if less so, then you do like with a tree, you can prune it, you can water it, you can fertilize it, then it's your job to tend to that web. Does it make sense?
Yeah, very much so. And it still resonates very much with the card of the episode of the Empress, because that's talking about heart nurturance basically. And I've heard somewhere, I'm not like a scientist and I don't know where I heard this, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of new age standard protocol stuff, that the electromagnetic and effect, I guess, or the power of the electromagnetic of the heart area is much bigger than the brain. We tend to put a lot of locus and emphasis on mentality, like the mind, the corpus callosum, the brain, like as the functional part of reality and how it is manifested. And it's not that it doesn't have a part, but it's much less. Heart. It's what it's. I tend to say that like everything. I mean, this is kind of a Christian way of looking at it, but it's like everything's by, through, for, and to love. Like it seems like everything was created out of the idea of wanting more and love. Like it wasn't maybe even necessary potentially, which is a weird way to think about ourselves. It's like we're kind of a byproduct of imagination wanting to experiment or something. But it seems that like love is the through line. And I think that becomes very evident on psychedelics sometimes, depending on what drugs you do. Definitely in meditation, I've been doing a lot of contemplation lately, and just realizing that I'm able to respond through my heart, and that's what makes us human. Very much like when we kind of wall up and guard it, it's like that's what our mind wants us to do, and our ego is saying, "Oh, that'll save you, so do it." So sometimes it makes sense in that logical quote mind sense, but ultimately we're here to, even in pain and stuff, open up further and further through it, which is kind of a feminine nurturing kind of principle, very Empress card. Raphael, you have any thoughts?
Catch me off guard. Well, there's a lot to say
Oh, I
about
try.
this. Obviously, I mean, this is so simple. I think that the best and easiest explanation again is by the Heart Math Institute. They do like tests with it and so on, and you can see, electromagnetic power of the brain compared to the heart, and it's a joke, like the heart is much more powerful. And also Bashar ceaselessly goes on about how the heart connects you to everything, and that apparently, I guess there will be some scientific version of this at some point, the heart even sends out signals at the speed of light with every heartbeat. But of course, that even here, speed of light would be the slower lane of communication. There's of course the whole, quantum thing then, yeah, so yeah, the heart is of so much importance, it cannot be overstated.
Right. And go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I wanted to say, coming back, it is scientifically proved. I think the heart is 40,000 times more powerful than the brain. And together, like Raphael said, the Heart Math Institute have done a lot of studies, but when you combine the two, this is when you can really create magic in the world. So it's not either or, it's really together. It's a really stunning force. And if you want to push it a little further, our solar plexus, our stomach also is told to have a brain. So I think that as a human body, we couldn't be more perfect in a sense, and allowing the heart to be one of the leaders, I would say, generally can serve us well.
It's funny because I think the heart is like the seat of emotion, like it's the symbol of the seat of emotion in the Western culture. So it's like, I love you with all my heart. There's been cultures where, that was different. Like, like the liver was very important to Egyptians. I'm not saying the heart wasn't, but the brain, different parts of the body, like the, pineal gland, third eye, kind of stuff like that. And it's interesting to think that the heart has been made such an important part of culture for the West. And it's just it's a funny, I have Alex Gray oracle cards that I use on new and full moons, and one of them, it's going through like it's using the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors art, so it's got a whole lot of different types of art, but one of them is like I'm forgetting what it's called now, the cardiovascular system, and that's obviously being pumped through the heart, and there's a lot of physics to it that's weird. The fact that it's as important, the pump is just as much as important as like I'm not sure about the right word, but there's like expulsive, kind of like I'll push blood out and then it sucks back in blood. It's like a valve, right? So there's a lot of interesting physics going on there. And I know a guest we've had on who's done Welcome to the Golden Page, he's shown how the Milky Way, or not the Milky Way, the Lanikai, I think it's a super galaxy kind of image, the biggest image of the, like, not the universe, but like our galaxy or whatever. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not good at recanting this off the top of my head. But anyway, Lanikai is this like massive collection of many galaxies, including the Milky Way, and it looks exactly like our heart. So it's like as above, so below. It seems like we're in a very special place in the dream. The heart seems to be a big deal, even in Captain Planet, which is a cartoon from the 80s, or early 90s. I don't know if you ever saw that American show, but they would have all the elements, right, where it's like earth, wind, water, fire, and then this kid from South America, ironically, where ayahuasca is from, and stuff like that, says heart. So it's like even considered an element in that TV show.
Wow,
The fifth
that's so
element, as they
beautiful.
say.
Oh yeah, The Fifth Element. That's a good movie, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, duh. I mean, I'm sitting here saying it without realizing it, connecting the dots. Thank you, Raphael.
Mr. Pop Culture.
I've only
Glad to
seen
help
that
you
movie
out.
once, I'll be honest. I don't know how I haven't seen it a bunch. I mean, it's not a bad movie, Lilu and all that, but I think I've been too distracted.
Well,
So,
then let me just say a good recommendation. So Fifth Element, I mean, anyone listening who really doesn't know really has to check it out. And also the same, and here maybe opinions differ, but the same director made another movie called Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And even just for the initial depictions of the varying so-called extraterrestrial races, it's like awesome to watch. And some think it's a bit shallow in comparison, but it's nice enough. And even Rihanna, I think, is featured.
the visuals are amazing, but the acting is not as awesome as it could be. But it's actually a pretty good movie. Haley, my fiance, and I reference ourselves as that team. I'm like, let's be Valerian. Because even though we're not always on the same page, like we're still a team or whatever. So it's like good to remind us. It's a decent movie. It's got a lot of alien stuff in it, which is more. I mean, you're more used to that kind of stuff than I am, but I think it does a good job of explaining kind of like. I really like the intro to it where it shows with David Bowie song playing. All the space station upgrades over the years. So first it's like,
Right.
humans. It's like, oh, Americans are in space, and now there's a space station. The Russians and the Americans, they're like, and they're showing heart in space. Like, ironically, friendship, camaraderie, openness, right? Like holy shit, we did this stuff, and it progresses over a while. It's like 2030, Japan's up there. 2088, India's up there, in Africa, and then eventually it's like, oh, aliens start making contact, and the space station grows so much. That's kind of the plot entrance where it's like we have to leave Earth's orbit because we're going to crash into Earth, so we're going to go into deep space and do this kind of Noah's Ark essentially of intergalactic camaraderie, which is, I mean, ultimately it's a mental thing to like communicate with people, but it's also a heart thing to want to be able to extend the olive branch and say, I'm not going to attack you. Like, I'm here to like, share in the moment with you, however that looks, whether it's, alien or human. And Fifth Element, I think, is probably better acting. Bruce Willis, ironically, a little side note, my family has a family friend who Bruce Willis almost married this lady back in the day, and then he didn't, and then he went to Hollywood and got big and married Demi Moore and all these people. So it's like, oh my God, that would have been so psychedelic if he had not fitted this. Anyway, I'm rambling. So Alex, where do you want to take this conversation about heart?
Well, I'm curious if from your own experience, is it something that you would resonate?
I think, okay, so I'm a double Gemini, an 11th house sun, I'm in Gemini, so Aquarius flavored Gemini energy, very mental, right? My Jupiter is in 7th house, which is Libra Aquarius, so I have a lot of Uranian and Mercurial energy, very mental is kind of what I'm getting at. Though I have some other elements that helpfully help tether that into like emotionality and embodiment stuff, Taurus stuff, Cancer stuff. Even though I'm saying it, I think there's a big difference between being in the head, which was where I tend to dwell, and then there's moments of stillness. That's why I like tripping on acid so much and stuff. It shatters my ego enough where I can't use my head, and it forces me into the heart more, and I start feeling like deep empathy and deep connectedness at a level that it also happens not on drugs, too, I should say. It's not like drugs are mandatory. Just psychedelics seem to be a very quick shortcut or whatever to like bypass the mind in a certain way. It seems that for me, it's not like it's part of my nature to be mental, but it's also a defense mechanism. So I think I have a very big heart, but I've kind of walled up the heart with the mind to the point where I'm like, I'm friendly with everybody, but it's like I don't know how many people know my real heart, like very few people probably, even though I'm honest and open and communicative and stuff like that. So when, like, there's times when I'm doing car jams or watching movies or even commercials. I saw something the other day that was a commercial and it made me very like well up with tears, which is kind of on the one hand pathetic, but on the other hand very beautiful. So I think we're kind of entering a phase of heart. Well, I don't know if even heart's the right word. It seems like, okay, so according to Richard Rudd, who was just on the podcast last month or something, the Gene Keys author, which is kind of based on human design a little, but we're kind of evolving from an ajna perspective, like a third eye mental place of knowing with the mind into a solar plexus knowledge, like you're saying. So that's going to be more, I mean, official is maybe not the right word, but like 2027 is this date that they keep saying, where that shift is very evident. And I think that's kind of going from a place of cold mentality, or not cold, but like more mental, like kind of logic, reason and stuff, into a place of knowing. And to get from the ajna, from the third eye to the solar plexus, you have to cross the heart. So I think we're actually in a place right now and over the next few years where people, if they've been doing shadow work, if they've been kind of massaging their heart to stay soft and open and receptive energetically, there's going to be a lot of benefit to that. And then people who have been kind of hiding their hearts, or like, the Bible talks about hardening your heart. People who have been doing that might be kind of doubling down on that in a weird way. It's a very Dolores Cannon kind of moment, it seems, where there's two timelines, and one's very, love and light and heart and let's go magic, and then the other one's like fear, control, technology, Orwellian weirdness. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I think my question is also, if I told you that everything in your reality you could map through your heart, how would that feel?
That reminds me a little of the movie Inside Out, which I know is about the brain or whatever personalities. I don't know if you've seen Pixar's Inside Out, but there's this like interior mapping of like all these worlds. So it's like Friendship Land and
Yes, I've
Hockey
seen the
world.
one.
Yeah. So how that kind of
Fabulous.
maps out, those are like, that's heart-based stuff. I mean, yes, she's apprehending it with the mind and making memories, quote unquote, with the all, all the colored balls or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like these are places that resonated in her inner child, her heart. And I think that there's something to be like in the Bible, it talks about like the kingdom of God belongs to children, like little kids. I think that has a lot to do with just like open-heartedness, um, and willingness, playfulness. I think, yeah, so I do think everything can also, I mean, in a weird way, everything is originally mapped from that place, and then we try to make sense of it. And then, we try to, control it, I guess, more mentally from that place. What do you guys think?
Raphael, what do you think?
Well, I don't think.
What do you heart?
Exactly. So my impression is that it's a lot about, shifting gears. And as you may well know as a double Gemini, but I equally know I have enough air aspects to know about this. You can dissect and analyze everything. And we've been discussing this on shows, and I'm sure many are aware, the general impetus has been, to go overly into analyzing and dissecting and brain and logic and linearity and so on. And it's obviously not working. And also by now, I think it's pretty obvious that the brain is super amazing and highly effective. However, it should simply take its orders from the heart. It's as simple as that. And then everything can be in perfect order. That would be my main idea in regards to those contemplations.
What does Bashar say about the heart? I've never even thought about that.
Well,
I mean, is there a specific thing he says? I don't know. I mean, usually it's like, it's your beliefs, but that's more of a mental thing to me. So is this like belief from the heart?
well, it's still about beliefs in terms of the construction of your reality. The point is more like, where is the, let's say, focus of energy, or let's just say it's a different layer when we talk about it in these terms. So what he recommends is a book called The Heart's Code, which I haven't read, but apparently is all about these things we've just been talking about. And he doesn't recommend many books, maybe like over the 30 plus years, he recommended 1 or 2 dozen books, if that many. So again, it's called The Heart's Code. And there it's pretty much, I think, all about these ideas of telepathy. And even here, he's always asked about telepathy, and then he always explains it's telepathy. It's actually about tuning into the same frequency as another, and this primarily works not through the brain or anything, but again, through the heart. And even from my channelings and everything that's ever coming across, it's always the heart. The dolphins, no matter who, the Pleiadians, they don't want to connect with you through your brain or something, even though that may be a tool that's used in the process. Everything is, in that sense, contained within the heart. And there is even, which the galactic channeling, where he also mentions this specifically. All of you are contained within the one beating heart of creation. So that's certainly a recurring theme. And to your question, Alex, in terms of how would it be if everything can be mapped through the heart? I see as everything being de facto mapped within the one beating heart of creation. So it makes very much sense to me. And it's certainly one of the holographic, how should I say, focal points of creation simply. If that is specific enough for you, Jim, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're just shooting the shit. I'm just curious because it seems like Bashar's stuff tends to be more like mental constructs or something, but I guess he's spoken upon it more.
Let me just talk about this briefly because it's relevant and maybe also be interesting to you, Alex, or to the listeners. So he's very much this rational aspect, not like Abraham, who's more like airy-fairy, even though she also has her straight concepts and guidelines. So Bashar seems very, masculine, rational, and so on, which he is. I mean, it's a Sasani. However, the Sasani, again, are that, in my view, amazing because they are including not only the super hyper rationalized aspect, which then was the Greys, but also they recovered us actually in this present time. So once again, let me say that the humans now, according to this storyline at least, we are one part or 50% of the genetic makeup of the Sasani. And from the Greys, they already had all the scientism, all the rationality, all the linear thinking, and all of that. But from the humans, so from their own ancestors, from us now, they were seeking the emotion and this, mother-child bonding, emotional relations between humans, touch, all of that. They had to relearn and reintegrate that. And this reintegrated view is where Bashar is coming from. So whilst he's giving you all these mental concepts, just because, again, especially in the Western world, many are trained in that, me included, he's always referring back to what? To excitement. And excitement is not a logical idea that you make up in your mind, but it's a bodily feeling. And equally, he's talking a lot about heart and so on, because ultimately, whilst you have all these mental constructs, the prime indication is emotion,
excitement of the inner child or something.
Yes, exactly. And it's in a sense something that's beyond reason altogether.
Right, and it makes me it's funny that you brought up Abraham Hicks, I think is what you said, with the Palladian kind of channeling. That always to me seemed much more like not that one's more inner child than the other, but it's like, hey, have fun. Even though he's saying highest excitement, his presentation method seems to be more heady to me.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess the whole thing about the Essassani is that they're balanced. They have their intuition, emotions, and reason or whatever balanced. It's not like one is at the exclusion of the other, where I think Palladians have to learn balance based off of the Galactic Heritage cards. It's like they were overly enthusiastic. They were bypassing. They just wanted to play. They didn't do the, the shadow work as much. And now that, I mean, maybe I'm convoluting a bunch of stories, but it seems like there's like pure heart. And it's like, oh shit, sometimes when you come at it with, this is the tricky part, you can mean very well from a place of empathy, and then sometimes it's not logical to do that. If that makes any sense. I'm not saying people should guard their hearts, but it seems like, do you know what I'm trying to say? If I can't give a good example.
Actually, let me just be brief. So that's actually a great point. And let's get right into that with Alex. But allow me just to say, as far as I understand, Abraham Hicks per se is not a Palladian channel in her own definition, as far as I understand. Although I can understand that if you look at her and like, I believe Wendy Kennedy, who's a Palladian channel, they're both like this, or it's like this upbeat ideas, which then to many, again, quickly may seem like spiritual bypassing and all of that. And there's an aspect to that, which we'll discuss momentarily. However, also here, I would not, never judge a book by its cover, because as far as I could get it, also Abraham Hicks, they give like real good guidelines, and it may seem less logical or in a sense, I don't know how to say, mental than with Bashar, but doesn't mean that if you take her advice to heart, it's not equally effective. It's just a different route, I would say, towards the same source energy in a sense. However, the point being, what you mentioned with the Palladians, and that's also echoed in Ra's Law of One with the fourth density wanderers, is that the idea here being individuals, no matter how you define yourself exactly, being very empathic and loving and giving, that sometimes they lack the wisdom to be equally giving and loving towards themselves, and then quite easily may overstretch their energy, and this may result in a burnout, which is actually in a sense from a positive intention, but it's without wisdom.
It's like executed naively, yeah. Because I think there's a Galactic Heritage card in the Lisa Holt cards that says blind enthusiasm. And I mean, they're like seeking karmic balance. Like these are a few of the Palladian cards that I can recall off the top of my head. And it's not to say that there isn't wisdom there, and it's a certain type of wisdom. It seems like almost like joy from Inside Out, like we were talking earlier. There's a wisdom in joy, but there's also wisdom in sadness, which is maybe a human experience. And then there's a wisdom in anger, which is maybe an Orion experience or a Lyran thing. Because it seems, and we don't have to ramble on about galactic starseed dynamics forever, but like Lyrans seem to have issues about like enthusiasm with dominance flavoring or whatever. It's like, I want to go explore and control, and then Orion's like, I want to control and dominate, and then you know what I mean? It's like everyone's got a little different flavoring. It seems like Palladians were kind of like, drunk on life or something, like in a very good way. They're like, hell yeah, let's do this. But it's like, sometimes over enthusiasm is a problematic thing. It's like, but then I mean, maybe that's me misinterpreting it, or maybe that time is shifting where I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but you see my
just
point.
simply put, that's why you have the 3 timelines in the Galactic Heritage cards.
Right,
so
right,
you
right.
can both see in a Richard Rudd Gene Key sense, let's say, you can see the shadow, the gift, and the city.
That's a good way to look at that. I hadn't thought of it that way. Good call. Sorry, we're
So
kind of
anyways, actually, I
shooting
want
the
to
shit
know,
about all
Alex.
this. Yeah.
Yes. So let's get back to Alex with one more spoiler, just to mention Orion and pop culture. I'm watching Star Trek Discovery. Also they can't help themselves to include cringeworthy scenes. Anyone knowing about what I'm talking about will know. Although they have great concepts, they should just frame it differently. I'll even say it here. So very briefly put, they have to push this whole, I multiple personalities. And it's not like this is what we aren't discussing here all the time anyways. They have to push it down your throat. In a sense, it's great because there's one individual. She seems, at risk of getting all kinds of flack for this, but you look at her, you would say she's lesbian in a sense. just she looks tomboyish, let's say. You don't have to say she's lesbian, but whatever. Turns out she has a boyfriend in that movie or in that series. However, this boyfriend is part of an alien species and has a kind of, I'm thinking of the Stargate Goa'uld, that's a bad example now, but like a symbiote, and her boyfriend dies, the symbiote gets transferred to her. And so she carries the memory of him and all the others who carried this symbiote. And it's a positive relationship, right? Though she has trouble figuring it out. And then at some point, she's referred to she's an amazing engineer because she has all this knowledge. And she's referred to by the main engineer. And he says, oh, she's very fast. And then in the next moment, it's like a scene and you can tell it's kind of awkward. She's like, oh, please don't call me she. And then you're like, yeah, okay. And call us they or them. She would prefer that. And that's obviously kind of a thing at this whole, I multiple identities hype in current times. Yeah. The only issue I'm taking with this is then she says, oh, I've always felt this way and I don't, I want to be called them or they. Whilst within the lore of the Star Trek story, just the fact that she has a symbiote, that should be the real reason why she wants to be called them or they. And that's what, in my view, she should be referring to. Anyways, so that was a whole sidetrack. You can comment on that if you want or not. The other thing that came up, Orionites or Orions also come up in the new Star Trek. They are green for some reason, but they're equally power-bound and hungry. So you have exactly the, let's say, Galactic Heritage stories also in Star Trek happening right now. That's interesting. But the real point I wanted to get back at with Alex is in regards to the whole, let's say, fourth, fifth density, or the whole question about love without wisdom and how you are approaching that, or anything you want to comment about, the convoluted, gratuitous commentary I just gave.
I haven't watched the series you're mentioning, so unfortunately, I'm still on the traditional Star Wars movie. That's as far.
I haven't seen it either. Don't feel bad.
Okay. And I like the Pleiadian drunk on life in a sense. It's that's pretty much my attitude. If I can be happy and jolly and don't even have a reason why, I'm still happy about it.
So we're bringing up an interesting point, though. It feels like, and I don't know, there's no right or wrong answer, so I'm kind of just exploring this spontaneously, where it's like, all right, it seems that we started from love in a certain kind of dimensionality, and then there was a split from this unified source love or whatever, and that all these fragments have had to learn different aspects of wisdom through experience, and we're remembering the joy of what it is to be in very specific ways, and I think learning to acknowledge and appreciate it differently. But things like World War II and atom bombs and just the history of humanity. Rome, you're Italian. Rome running around conquering people like, it's like submit or die, and everyone's like, fine, we'll take aqueducts, or I'd rather do that than die. It's been a really rough ride, but it seems like necessary. So I guess I'm kind of curious about what your thoughts are in terms of like the heart, kind of the innocence to experience and back to like a reforged innocence, because experience tends to seem like it's like hardening up, wisening up, but like wisdom doesn't have to be hard. I think there's a real wisdom in, keeping it soft, but then it's like not being naive, not just being like, well, I'm gonna bungee jump without I'm gonna jump without a bungee jump or whatever. And at some point, like, oh shit, like maybe we should have a bungee jump. It's a little wiser. Like it prevents a few heartaches. Uh, I've had to learn a lot of issues about boundaries and relationships myself. I have just a lot of love to give, right, or whatever. And I've had to learn the hard way, where it's just like that's not appropriate potentially, and there's a lot of fallout from that.
As crazy as this seems, right?
Well, it's weird because at the end of the day, I think that's even an illusion, right? Where it's like, but I was doing it from an ignorant place and not it's a lesson, so I'm not even complaining. But the point is, like, I've hurt myself or others by being naive and just being like, well, whatever, it's love, like it's just a fling or whatever. And it's like, anyway, we're kind of talking about the heart, and I'm kind of alluding that with love, and love is very broad because there's like agape,
so,
phileus. So anyway, I guess what are your opinions on like the maturity of the heart, the journey of the heart? I mean, maybe we're always in one place and we deviate from it, or maybe there's actually kind of a hero's journey of the heart in a sense.
Well, I think this is something that it's good to bounce back with you as well, because that's what I'm thinking, right? If you can map your existence in, let's say, in the 3D from the heart, then you could, and let's say we're looking at this web of love, right? So where is this web? And you're mentioning, oh, maybe this person hurt me. Was there a web of love? Maybe from you to that person there was a strand, but was the strand healthy, or was the strands the way that was shown to me is through colors and glitter and shining, right? So if you could see, let's keep it simple, between two romantic partners, right? So let's say a string going from you to this person, and if you could see the color of that strand, and maybe you thought it was really pink and you were totally infatuated and maybe in love with this person, but the other person wasn't reciprocating from her heart to your heart, then which color would that strand be? And if it wasn't, the sparkly, I don't know, pink, or the color that resonates for you, was there an indication that maybe it wasn't a healthy connection? Maybe that, remember at the beginning I said, like a tree, maybe you need to fertilize it, or maybe you need to cut it because that branch is dead. Would that change your reality if you could see things that way?
Yeah, I mean, with the example that I'm alluding to, it seemed that I think they cared about me. I mean, this is not even an official girlfriend or anything, but they cared about me, and I was like, sure, I'll go through with this because I care. And there's a big difference between caring and like loving. And I've learned the lesson where it's like, don't do things that you do with people that you're in love with people that you just care about, because that sends a lot of mixed signals and expectations and hurts more than it helps, as much fun as it might be. So, in that instance, I was more like the not reciprocating one. I was the bag colored web, if you want to put it that way. And I was like, sure, I'll go along with this. But it's weird because I think this kind of gets into like, I don't want to talk about like twin flames and soulmates and friends and like enemies and all this stuff. There's different types of relationships of the heart. Like when we like have an enemy, I think that there's no such thing as really an enemy. I mean, we're supposed to love our enemy, right? In a sense. So it's like, why aren't we able to accept them in our heart? Because our minds are getting involved, and it's taking like maybe what would be a yellow strand of webbing and making it brown. And it's like distorting it and turning it in a certain polarity and like shading it a certain way. And then I think there's also relationships that are like maybe like orange, and they don't need to go pink or bright pink or whatever, like erotic love or romance or whatever. And then sometimes, because we live in a culture that says kind of do whatever you feel like doing, which is it's helpful. I mean, I guess it seems like we've come 2 or 3 steps forward in terms of like liberal openness and like freedom, and even like Raphael was kind of alluding to, as like label me this way and not that way. Like if we compared the politics of now compared to like a few hundred years ago, like it's come a long way, but it feels like we've gone 2 or 3 steps forward, and now we might have to take 1 step back to calibrate. I don't know if what I'm saying is even making sense. I have like 40 thoughts at once, so hopefully I'm making any sense.
Yeah, I think I get you. And this is where wisdom maybe can help us out, because if you can map out this web, then you can also see, I guess, if a strand is coming. I'm going to take another example. Let's say you own a business and you're not so maybe doing as well in your business, not so motivated. And then by magic, you map the web of love and you see that, oh, hold on, there's no strand going from your heart to your business. It's going from your mind. Maybe because you thought, I'm going to make a lot of money by selling this type of heart. There, that's my business. But that doesn't come from the heart, right? So it came from the mind. And maybe at some point, you're not going to be happy. Again, this notion of being happy or drunk on life or whatever we want to call it, because actually doesn't come from the heart. Or maybe you've got an attraction for somebody without being rude. Instead of coming from your heart, it comes from your lower chakras. And then you can apply the wisdom then to say, yeah, okay, it's okay for me to have this kind of relationship, or actually I'd rather either cut the relationship, or for instance, in the case of the business, say, where is my heart really want me to go? And then maybe start drawing a different type of art that makes you happy. Are you with me?
Totally. I mean, this is like what Raphael was talking about: enthusiasm, joy, excitement. And there's varying degrees of that. So things that are hobbies can bring a lot of joy, but then one might want to take a hobby and be like, well, this is something I find fun. I'm going to make it a business. Like, for example, I'm a musician, but back when I was doing college in like 2008, I started doing music theory. And that felt like doing grammar for a poet or something. It's like, I don't really care about the mechanic. I mean, it's interesting, but it's like, I don't want to sit here and learn how to read music. I want to just play, like, have fun, not work at this. And there's a lesson in there too, because it's like, I wish now I could be able to read and stuff because I could do different opportunities. But I guess my point was, sometimes we can take things that excite us and then try to put too much structure or weight or whatever on them, and then that crushes the joy of it. So for me, also I was going through a lot of like weird shit like alcoholism and stuff at the time, so maybe that played into it. But for that example with the music, getting kind of bound by the grammar of music theory as opposed to just playing and performing all the time, that took something that I love and kind of diminished it. So we have to be, I think, wise, careful. I don't want to like say, careful in a bad way, but it's like people need to be discerning, I guess is the word I'm looking for, with like, don't try to overhype things that don't need, if it's a little ember, don't try to make a forest fire out of it, whether it's romantic or what, hobbies, because sometimes they're just little things. They're just, they're not meant to like sustain the fire, right? Like, oh, this is a hobby. I like walking the dog around the lake every day. I'm probably not going to go be a professional dog walker. It's not that much of a joy for me. But that doesn't mean not do it just because I'm not going to get paid for it. Simultaneously, things that bring us a lot of joy, don't stop doing them because it doesn't always pan out the way we would expect right away. I think some of the most important artists, Van Gogh, for example, he was very passionate about art, and he was not successful by worldly standards. He died unknown, essentially. And look at him today. Everyone's like, oh my God, Van Gogh. So it's like sometimes we have to continue with our joys in our heart. I mean, one could say Vincent Van Gogh was Van Gogh, according to his like native tongue. But Van Gogh is a good example of somebody who had a lot of heart in art, but it wasn't like being rewarded in a monetary or accolade sense. He was a nobody, kind of mental health issues and absinthe addiction and all sorts of crazy shit. I don't know if I'm making any sense. So yeah, there's a lot of ins and outs, as the Big Lebowski would say. But it's odd because I think what's happening is I'm trying to intellectualize things that are very obvious at a frequency level. So it's like, what brings you frequency of joy? You'll know it when you feel it. Like in the Matrix, the Oracle says, when you're in love, you know it. Like when you have joy, you know it. Like from balls to bones, you'll know it. There's no debating it. And I think sometimes what we've done in culture has been like, well, I'm interested in a lot of things. What can I capitalize on? And that can be problematic because sometimes there's, Van Gogh, for example, he loved art and we're all glad he did it, but he didn't make any money. And then sometimes people are okay at something and they're like, this is who I am. And it's maybe it's just a hobby, a little ember, and it's not the main flame of what their joy really is. And they're kind of distracting themselves with side quests or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of discernment. Like you said, it's always very important, at least in this reality. and it's just a tool, right? It's just to say, okay, I accept that the heart is so powerful. And obviously, at least for me, the objective is, what can I be doing as a human to have a better experience, right? This is, for me, this is my ultimate quest. So is it using your mind, or is it using your heart? Is it a combination of the two? And what else can you see that maybe you're not doing that can help you? And for me, this could be a very practical tool to say, okay, which are my strengths, which colors, for instance. And then you're going to feel it in your body. Then you can bring your mind as well and say, okay, this is what I want to keep. This is what I don't want to keep. But ultimately, it's like your GPS is reset at the level of the heart, because it's so much more powerful. And I think gives you back so much more than just being in your head.
Right, and just like the Emperor's card, I think there's the universe rewards heart more somehow. It wants you to be wise, but it rewards in joy and like love and life in a very particular, kind of way, more than just getting things quote right. Like it's even, it's better to have love than not. I forget the Shakespeare quote. It's like better to have lost in love than not have tried, or something like that. It's like one person says it's really safe to take this risk, and then another person's like, well, I screwed up and we didn't, have babies and all this stuff, but it's like, at least I tried. And the analogy that kind of gave to Wyatt, I don't know if you've ever been in a canoe, but like if you have two people in a canoe, somebody on the front is like obviously exploring. That's very much like the mind. It's exploring, it's checking out the horizon and stuff, but the power is coming from the back, and the direction mostly is coming from the back. The person up front is aiding the process, but it's much less of it has much less of an impact overall on the overall ride, even though they're the one experiencing it first, in a sense. Like perceptions come in a way through the brain very quickly, and this gets really weird, not weird, but interesting quickly, because I think I'm presupposing quite a bit through like the mind as like a hub of intelligence, but like there are, the aura and like things like that. I think that has more to do with the heart than the brain, right?
Yes, and even when you said something about the information, first is your heart, because it's the field is so much bigger than the heart, and then the information are processed at the level of the heart and then sent to the brain. So again, it's there, and this is why you get all the psychic abilities as well, and all the movement through the quantum field is not necessarily through the brain.
Right. So I guess with the canoe analogy, it'd be something like the back seat, which is the more power, whatever the canoe of the heart is like, hey, I want to go to that. Let's go canoe on this specific lake. Like I'm inclined to go this direction. It's my joy. So you end up in that lake, and then I guess the brain is up front saying, oh wow, look at there's a big wave coming, we got to watch out. And oh my gosh, did you see that fish? And oh, do you feel the wind? Maybe there's a storm coming. So it's giving in all the details, and then the heart gets to react and respond and say, well, we're going to go forward, or we're going to turn around, or oh my gosh, let's anchor here, or whatever. So it feels like there's it works in tandem. I mean, definitely, it's a whole system. We're a unified being, and for better or worse, probably worse ultimately, but it is what it is. We've been emphasizing mentality and knowledge and linearity and reason at the exclusion of empathy, at the exclusion of intuition, at the exclusion of childlike wonder for a long time culturally. And maybe that's why we have the internet, and maybe that's why we have globalization. Like I don't know, but so I think it could be defended at a level. That's kind of why Rome was trying to standardize things. So like, let's all get on the same page so we can like fucking jam together and not have everyone have their own like craziness and no one get along. But there's a price to be paid for that kind of stomping into a mold or whatever. And now we have a very well molded reality, like so to speak, like standardized reality in a sense, like westernized reality. But we're all kind of going crazy, being like, no one, not everybody, but a lot of people are like, I'm not joyful. What am I here for? Well, I've lost my passion. I'm just going through the motions. I feel like I'm in the matrix, and I'm just a cog in the machine. And that's because a lot of people have disconnected from their real power source, which is their heart.
Totally. At the same time, I feel that many people are looking for it. So again, yesterday I did another journey for the healing of the web of life with people that never journeyed before. And there were 12 people who never journeyed before, and in some way of shape or form, what they mentioned was this connection from the heart, was this really looking for being together, looking for not judgment, looking for healing from the heart. So isn't it strange? Okay, it's a small group, but there is more and more and more people I feel that are looking for those opening of the heart, and being in communion, in community, is definitely a manifestation of it, because I don't think you can create community from the mind, right? You need to come in community with an open heart, because we're all so different. If we just go at it from a mental point of view, I think nobody would be happy, right? But if you come at it from an empathy point of view, and from a loving, from wanting to feel something, right? Because this is why you come together, is wanting to feel, then I think there is so much opening and awakening. What do you think?
I think communities can be built off of mind. That's kind of what like the Borg is in Star Trek. It's not ideal. I mean, Raphael, right? I think like Greys are mental in their community in a sense, but they're having to go back in
Well,
time and try to figure shit out because they missed a step or whatever.
yes, exactly. So, it is certainly possible, but it's just like, how should I say, running a car without a wheel or whatever, or it's just like half a device. And if you know that you have both mental capacity as a human and you have emotional capacity, the Gray said the emotional capacity is too chaotic in their minds, I guess. And, they started fighting and warring and all of that. So yeah, definitely we should just become again a whole human with mind and heart, and have them work in synchronization, in conjunction, and again have the heart actually give the orders rather than the mind. And that's the thing we kind of got mixed up. And if we rectify that chain of command, let's say, all is well.
It seems like a certain type of efficiency was accomplished through certain ways at some point. So let's just say like a very Capricorn person was like, hey, we need a standardized thing and we all need to work together and make this like literacy. Let's all be able to read. As opposed to like, I don't feel like reading. I want to go play in the fields and play with flowers. At some point they're like, you're not going to make a living. Like it's tricky because we started
Yes,
telling
but
ourselves
you
stories.
already mentioned this. You're not going to make a living. I mean, where did that come from? That led to
The
animative
bubonic
and
plague, I have no clue. Right? It's
exact. Well,
tricky.
good point. You have no clue. I mean, this is what you say now. I'm not, condemning you. You say you have no clue, but I'm saying this. There is something to investigate right here. Yeah, reset research. And just to be clear that this is not. I want to say that the world like this, in my view, doesn't only come about because some Capricorn wants a standardized system. You can also have that, without. Here the idea is much more, as I see it, the idea of dependency and control and these Orionite traits, which then make it commensurate to have a population that is standardized to an extent, because I want to, in a sense, use them as a human resource. But if I don't have that view, then that's not important, and I'm pretty sure we can still find all kinds of standards of communication without the hidden intention of control, suppression, and conformity, just for the sake of being able to be managed more easily.
It's got to be something of a Yuga thing too, because I think even I'm just thinking of Joseph Campbell kind of assessments of more indigenous cultures. They still have like warriors who are like, we're not going to cry, like we're going to go out there and go kill the enemy. Like it's I think there was a time probably whatever 26,000 years ago, whenever, when it was like more Lemuria and it was more feminine and Empress card energy, where it was like everybody just kind of got along. And then I mean, people are the manifestation of these changes, so it's like through us, but like the energy shifted into a place of like ego, individualism, dominance, scarcity, like you're saying, and we could explain it through things like Orion, attributes were more resonant in the hologram, or however we want to kind of describe it. But it seems like now we're trying to find this middle place where it's like, no, we can't just sit around naked in the bush. Like none of us really prefer that. Like it's really cool that we've learned a few things about science, technology, our bodies, whatever. Like the indigenous wisdom of, like, I'm talking like 100,000 years ago, like we had, like, the pendulum swings. So it's like that was a very nurturing and probably very heart ironically driven thing. But then they were like, shit, like I'll get eaten by a fucking tiger or whatever. So we have to make a spirit, like it's tricky. It's not just so simple. But the pendulum was swing way too far in one direction, which is kind of the whole 20th century shenanigans where it's like nation states dropping bombs on each other and decimating, like all this stuff we've been doing. And I think we're kind of pulling back now where it's like, or not all of us, but that's kind of what the zeitgeist is right now, where it's like, y'all, do you want to keep going in that direction, or do we want to like have, it's kind of like a pit stop. It's like, is this the path we want to be going on? So it feels like even COVID even if it's a pandemic and all this kind of stuff, and it's not what we think it is, and it's what, nefarious, that's more Raphael's opinion. I'm not against that theory, but I'm just like, I think we have to be going through this, just based off the astrology. It seems like we're like, okay, it's a karma hiccup, and we've been kind of not learning certain lessons at the expense of other lessons, maybe is a way to put it. And now we have
You're
to be
completely
including our
correct. The only thing is maybe that the lessons that are to be learned are different than what is publicly presented as the lessons would have to be learned. For example, and now we have to get to this, Alex, just because I think you mentioned, coming together and whether it makes a difference. Of course it does. Just yesterday we had a dolphin channel on a German show, and I asked her, like, what would the dolphins say? Did she get a message? And she was like, she doesn't have to ask because it's obvious, like dolphins, they spend time together, and it certainly makes a huge difference. And definitely there are lessons to be learned. That's why it's called Corona. Once again, this is the crown. And I stay with, I believe, what I also said initially. It's all about sovereignty. That's the real lesson.
Well, let's take a quick music break. If you want to get some tea or go to the bathroom, that's maybe a good time to do it. And when we come back, we can kind of keep hashing out these ideas, talk about whatever you want, Alex, and just feel through it. I think if you're going to play the music I picked, this is a Holy Ghost song called It's Not Over, because at some point in a voice message, Alex is like, do you want to talk about the astrology? Is it the end of the world or whatever is going on December 21st? And I wanted you to just know it's not over. No matter what, like even if there's a solar flare, we all melt. It's not over.
Welcome back.
Interesting lyrics. I was just listening. I mean, I love that band Holy Ghost. They're two Jewish guys from Brooklyn who do cool dance music like that. I think that's like almost a decade old. That album, I'm crazy at this point. But it's talking about like tastes get I forget all the words, but it's like your taste change. The tapes get slower. Like back in the day, cassette tapes would like rub out. And it's talking about like kind of the entropy of life, but it's like hold on to me, like push through with your heart. Like we can make this work. We can creatively overcome this kind of thing. It's funny. I don't know. I didn't think about those lyrics when I picked it. I just thought of the "It's Not Over" chorus or whatever. But it also resonates in kind of what we're talking about, where it's like things can break down and things change, but we still find ourselves participating in it, and there's more joyful ways to do that and more miserable ways to do that, I guess. Anyway, Alex, what's on your mind?
I'm still smiling at the song and at the word sovereignty, because it's I feel in a sense we are at this crossroad, right? As humans, where do we go from here? What do we do? And I think this is why if we acknowledge the heart a little bit more, maybe we've got a chance of being more in alignment with the web of life, because ultimately, it's not just us. It's the cosmos. It's, if you look at Mother Earth, what it's our relationship with her. And the more you drop into the heart, I think, if we use Raphael's make the heart the leader, then it's a lot harder to start pillaging, to start dropping bombs, to start criticizing the neighbor, right? You get a different perspective. And I think in the long term, even if it might be a bit more of a roller coaster, as I feel sad when you feel sad, or, if something, I'm more affected by it for sure. But at least there's a reason. At least there's more sovereignty, because you relate more. And like I said, if everybody's driving from the heart, I'm sure that much less reasons for crying.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie with Jeff Bridges called The Giver. It's based on a book I haven't read, but the film I've seen, and it's kind of an Orwellian situation, and I don't really know the details, but basically there's this group of people that like live on a high plateau and they're highly technological, and they take a pill to kind of like almost antidepressant, anti-anxiety kind of pill that numbs them out, and they see the world kind of, they're very efficient, and they're nice, they're friendly, they're still humans, right? But then this one kid becomes like his task, I guess everyone gets like designated tasks like for their careers, because that's just how the ant colony works. It's like, okay, you're going to be a engineer and you're going to be a wet nurse, and whatever they're doing. And this one kid is like basically like the prophet of the, like there's only one giver, I guess, ever, and he gets picked this, so he goes and hangs out with this old dude who's kind of like the shaman guide or whatever, and he starts taking his pills and he starts getting overwhelmed with emotion to the point where he's like crippled by it, like he's just never had emotions. I mean, he's had very tepid and thin emotions, right? Like he understands anger a little, or understands love a little, but like when you get off this medicine, which is also kind of alluding to like pharmaceutical, overindulgence with just prescription drugs and stuff, kind of social commentary, but it's a little overwhelming, but at the same time he's living life more fully, like he appreciates it, like you're saying. Even I was reading Gene Keys this morning. I do that every day with my fiance, and today was 56. I think Raphael actually has this, which the city is intoxication, and it's like, sad. There's beauty in sadness. There's beauty in boredom. There's beauty in grief. There's beauty in ecstasy. There's beauty in all the positive normal ones, like happiness, all that stuff. But like being bored is like, there's a very specific experience to that or sadness that we try to avoid, I think, or have been trying to avoid for efficiency's sake in modern culture. And maybe that's kind of what the I don't know if Raphael was saying the Greys were saying that, but it's like emotions can get messy, but they're real. Like they're not real. And then we don't want to be so emotional that we don't get out of bed for like 6 months. Like that's not helpful, right? But it's tricky. I guess I'm just musing about The Giver. I'm rambling. I've been on a really
All right.
ramble today. Yeah, go
So
for it.
I'll take over the rambling. Two things. Number one, as I understand, Alex, or as we've been talking, are more accustomed, let's say, to the earthbound realms, which, as we understand through the heart anyways, are holographic as well. However, apparently yesterday or something, hashtag Galactic Federation was trending on Twitter because the ex-Israeli Secret Service or intelligence head, retired Israeli general and space security chief Professor Haim Eshed, said during an interview with an Israeli newspaper last week that extraterrestrials have been in contact with the government of the United States and Israel for years. And also, there's an agreement between the US government and the aliens, so nothing new, but interesting that a former intelligence head says this. And also, that interestingly enough, space aliens asked Trump not to expose the Galactic Federation. The UFOs, quote from him, have asked not to publish that they are here. Humanity is not ready yet. And then there is this, meme I posted, which says, humans, are we ready to meet the aliens yet? And Galactic Federation says, well, if you become really chill about a lot of things really fast.
Yeah, so where does that leave us as humans?
Dealing with life, trying to figure it out. This is where it gets tricky, because I think a lot of what COVID's done and this lockdown has done is allowed people. It's almost like a mandatory sweat lodge or something, where it's like, yo, are you going to sit with yourself well? Like, who are you? Is all the momentum of the world and the culture for the past 100 years? Like, what happens when it hits pause? Like, is this who you really want to be? Like, does this bring you joy, or are you just going through the motions?
Yeah, I feel that that's the question, but I don't think many have heard that question. They're still pretending that it's not happening. This is This is what I feel. I'm dropping a bomb maybe here.
Well, I think Terence McKenna said it best where, I mean, the reason he was such an advocate for psychedelics, he's like, it's preparing you for basically the singularity, where it's like the novelty and synchronicity and magic and weirdness and just craziness is going to keep on getting so intense that basically psychedelics, which I mean, you don't have to do drugs, obviously, but it's like these states of consciousness allow people to be more lubricated and acclimated for the weirdness. And I think we're getting to a point. We're not there yet, but we're starting to get to astrological places where, and even yesterday or the day before, it's going to hit us today and tomorrow, but there was like a huge, massive coronal ejection Earth facing, which like doesn't happen very often, but it's like super big. I don't think it's going to like blow us
Coronal
out.
ejection, you say?
Yeah, the sun kind of spit out a solar flare basically towards us, and it's some CME, coronal mass ejection, and it takes a while. It's a million miles away, so it takes a while to get to us, but it's coming, and it might interfere. You know, earthquakes might increase. Technology might be kind of frazzled a little. You know, Wi-Fi might be a few bars down, kind of thing. We'll see. That's more of a tomorrow thing, but if the sun, I mean, this gets into a lot of presuppositions. If the sun is like this center of consciousness or our heart, in a sense, even the higher mind, higher heart, it's shooting kind of data at us to upgrade. It's Sagittarius season right now, which is kind of this lofty truth seeker. And I guess the reason I'm saying all this is because no, I don't think, I think a lot of people think things are going to go back to normal and this is just a hiccup. And I'm not saying they won't be, you know, it's not going to be like from like a 180-degree turn, but I think we get to change the trajectory a little. And this is kind of what Dolores Cannon talks about, and other people have talked about for a long time, where it's like there's kind of a split in realities, and some people are just going to double down and want to live the way we are and keep going where that goes. Like, yeah, let's go colonize Mars, but it's like, why the fuck are we colonizing Mars if we can't even, like, you know, feed ourselves properly? And it's just tricky. Like, it's a big lesson, karmic lesson right now, it seems, especially astrologically, with the grand conjunction coming up on December 21st. Jupiter and Saturn are conjoining, literally. Jupiter's about big, more, extra, all the things, and Saturn's about karma, time, limits, restriction. So we're kind of getting a big pop quiz, you could say, to be like, are we being integrous? Like, if you have like a dope looking, I don't know if you know what Mardi Gras is, but like in New Orleans, they have this thing called Mardi Gras where they have like floats, like parade floats. And it's like you could have an amazing looking float, but if it's not built very well, like it could fall apart and kill everybody on the float, like while they're just dancing on it and like throwing necklaces around or whatever they're doing. So I think we've been living in a culture that looks really crazy cool, but there's a lot of fundamental issues. And it's weird because on the one hand, it's like these are explorations in consciousness that had to occur. So we had to understand what it means to, like, you know, go through what we have, whether it's, you know, like Rome to England to America, like all these things are causally necessary. That's why they occurred. But at the same time, I think there's people that have incarnated, probably yourself included, Alex, with different goals than the like we can play this game, but we want to play it a little differently. And I think all we have to do is kind of hold our space in our hearts and inspire others by what we're doing and kind of create the world we want from that joyous place. And people will have their options. It's kind of like anything. Like there's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and it's like, well, you can have mashed potatoes, or you can have, you know, shrimp, or whatever the heck you want to eat. But like, so people are going to make their decision. That's Age of Aquarius, right? Where we're going into this place where people are picking their teams. It's very much like the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter, where it's like, you know, if you're Gryffindor, you're not Slytherin, and if you're Slytherin, you're not Ravenclaw, and if you're, you know, but so they're very different. But they're all in Hogwarts, so it's like we're all on planet Earth, but people are starting to go to what they vibrate more with, and it's not even bad or good, because I mean, there's people that want to, like, you know, have a nice, neat, orderly, completely, you know, manicured reality where it's like sterile and mechanical, and AI is telling, you know, Siri is guiding everything. That's fine if they want that. And then there's people who want to, like, you know, take off their shoes and dance in the field and do psychedelics and meditate with, you know, give massages with a group, or, you know, like more feminine kind of earth mama stuff, Empress card stuff. That's fine. And in a weird way, we're all going to be finding our tribes, it seems. Even if we're all in lockdown, we're having to know who we are right now and hopefully people listening, I know I'm trying to do a lot of work where it's just like, what do I really want? What is the heart of my dream? Not what do I think is going to make the most sense, or what do I think is going to make the most money, or what do I think is going to make the most, success or whatever. Those things come from when you're in alignment with your heart. And like you were saying earlier, if you don't have that fire going, it's hard to cook with not much fire. I mean, you could do it kind of like but it doesn't work out. Whereas if you have a nice roaring fire, the heart, you can kind of cook anything and make it work. So I'm rambling. God, it's been a lot of rambling on my part today. Sorry, but it seems like we're entering a place where it is a crossroads. I mean, that's been this whole year where it's like, all right, you were kind of going, down the highway, going really fast in third gear, but it's like, are you in the car you even want to be in? And it doesn't mean this car is bad, because I'm not even sure there's even bad and good anymore. I mean, I'm not saying I'm beyond good and evil at a level, but it's like we've preferred certain things and we've been negligent of, certain things at the exclusion of preferences. So we've said we want fast food. We don't want like healthy food. For a few generations said that. They were like, we just want McDonald's, we just want fast. And then of course it gets weird because like people are making the food really salty and really fatty and making you like your body will crave it whether you want it or not, that kind of stuff. But we've been programmed and engineered in a certain way for a long enough time, and I think now between the power of the internet and the power of the astrology, which is being reflected in this lockdown and kind of wake up call, where it's like, before you go forward, know where your chips lay. Like you have a pair, what cards do you have? If you have two aces, you're going to gamble very differently than if you have 2 7 offsuit in poker. So it's like, what are your cards? Who are you? Know thyself. And we've had a lot of opportunity. I mean, some people have maybe, gotten more into alcohol and I mean, I think the suicide rate and the drug and alcohol rate right now is like pretty off the charts. So there's a lot of people who aren't really spiritually equipped right now for many reasons to deal with this, but they're, it's like when you go to a pop quiz, it's like maybe you didn't study. You're going to be sweating bullets if you didn't study, but you still have to take the quiz. Like that's kind of where we're at. And some people who have been studying like are not sweating as much. It seems like you've been doing a lot of work yourself, Alex, over the years. So it seems like however you want to look at it, whether the universe has blessed you or you manifested or some dance between that, like you're in a situation where you're not homeless, you're near a park, near a ley line, right? Like you're doing all right. Even though it's not ideal, we're not free in the same sense as we used to be, and maybe it'll be a while before that happens again. But yeah, it's a big checkpoint basically. It's Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto. It's almost like a border crossing. So it's like, where's your passport? Do you have the papers? Like do you know where you're going? And a lot of people have been living in the momentum of a culture that is excessive, selfish, very throwaway culture where it's like, we don't really think about the environment. We're just going to throw the trash over there in the landfill. And now it was a forest, but now it's a landfill. Like that kind of thinking isn't going to work anymore. The people that want to continue to do that path are able to. That's why free will and the hologram allows that. But at the same time, I think we're starting to have a real bifurcation where a lot of people are like, you know what, I was told X, Y, and Z, and I believe A, B, and C, and I'm going to stand up for that, and I'm going to do my own thing because of my heart telling me so.
Yeah, Jim, I'm with you 100% because, well, you said a lot of things. I'm trying to just put them together. But ultimately, it is a crossroad, I feel. And this solar flare happening, so data are landing, right? It's whether you believe it or not, they're landing. Whether you believe in astrology, those two planets are meeting, right? And this is going to have a massive, massive impact. And it's all about bring back that alignment. You mentioned fast food. This is fast life. You want to be on the internet. If it takes 2 seconds to charge, oh my God, what a disaster. And the universe is saying, hey, is that important? Is that what's important to you right now? How long it takes to charge? What about what we mentioned, sovereignty, freedom? What do you want? Your joy? What are your values, I think? So whether you live your life the way you want, but I feel the universe is saying either you come back into your alignment by your own will, or we'll nudge you a little bit down the road where you're going to be more or less forced to slow down, and you're going to be more acknowledge the Earth, the galactic, and all the other beings. So that's, are you studying? You know, part of my career and work of choice is to tell people, hey, wake up. That's what I always say. You have to wake up, show up, and step up. I'm doing fine. You know, like I said, I feel I'm doing fine. I got my, you know, spiritual awakening. I'm talking to my guides. I more or less have an idea. I'm taking care of my children, but I'm telling others, you can choose, of course, but it's part of our, it's not even our, I don't know, our job, or I think it's a vocation to say to others, you want to live a better life in the future, you got to change something and be part of the universe with your heart, with your sovereignty, with your integrity, and not as if I'm all alone and I can pillage the earth and maybe, you know, like you say, go to Mars and the moon and just act as if it's just us. That's not going to work for a very long time.
Right, we're hitting limits of sustainability. As Raphael always points out, the scarcity is kind of a program that we've been given.
That's another thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to jump in, but maybe to get Alex's view on this as well. I mean, why is it even called scarcity? Maybe I mean, also you're not an English native. Maybe to us it's more apparent, but I'm so scared of scarcity, and maybe all of the scarcity is just a scare and nothing else. I'm starting to suspect that, actually.
Scarcity in what?
Say again?
When you talk about scarcity, what do you refer to?
Oh, here I'm just talking about the name, the wording itself. Like Jim said, word magic.
Scare the city.
Yeah, scare. Yeah, scare the city. I'm scared, and just even the way, Jim, you pronounced it, you said scarcity, and there even scare. The scare is inside that wording already. So, and knowing that, you know, reality is built upon belief, and having done some investigations into, you know, health and all kinds of things, resources, whatever it may be, you come to realize that most of the time when you're presented with some kind of a idea of an entropic, meaning self-disintegrating system or highly limited system, if you look closer, you actually find that abundance is there. And that's the other kind of link back to what you're doing, Alex. Why I'm asking is whether it's just that people are scared. That's why they're in scarcity, and not abundance, or I would say from a dance. If you can catch my drift.
I can, and I think it's exactly that people are scared and maybe judgmental of a certain situation as well. Like I mentioned, you know, this is going to be my first Christmas without traveling to Italy. At the same time, and I've not been out and about much, I have to say, and I was a person that was always, you know, going somewhere and go to exercise and go to meet somebody and go to an event and go. So it's not like I was at home all the time. And when the pandemic hit and I said, okay, you know what, I've got 2 children, I'm a single mom. I know this is more related to frequencies and my frequencies are high, but at the same time, I'm going to be wise, quote, and avoid public places and stay home. But I never felt that my freedom was limited, so to speak, because it's kind of it was my decision not to go out, right? It was my decision not to go. Even now, it's my decision not to go on a plane. I know many people that are traveling for Christmas. And for me, when I lost my freedom, I just remember, you know, many past lives when I was chained and burned and my head was chopped off. So right now, even if I have to wear a mask, for me, it's got nothing to do with losing my freedom. I'm just so feeling grounded. And I'm so feeling blessed by, you know, everything that I have. And like I said, I've got such a beautiful park, and ultimately London is an amazing city, that you can do many, many things, but I still don't feel that scarcity, and I don't feel that I'm tied down. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I just wanted to get to that point of, being scared or not, and to the point of how one deals with all of these measures is the idea I also picked up yesterday from this, Margit Mayra Fuchs is her name. She's a dolphin channel. I think you would probably get along very well as well, now that I'm thinking of it. And she said she says pretty strong opinions and has done a lot of research. We're going to get her on soon, Jim. At least I'm going to enjoy this, because she's not only spiritual, but also into the technical stuff of all of that's happening. And, but what she said is basically that as long as it's a conscious decision, it's all perfectly fine. The point usually is that, of course, people are just complying with whatever, and they don't even have a clue what they're doing or why, or it's automated. And I agree with you, actually. It is, as always, even just now, we can take a good example. People are being scared to stay home. Then you have all kinds of regulations, which are, 3 times unconstitutional and so on and so forth, but whatever. And then you find out there's even exceptions. And if you know what you're doing, you can do a lot of things, let's just say. But again, there's an attempted scare to get people to be paralyzed, actually, if I put it like this. But in truth, just as you mentioned, there are so many things that are possible. And the way I can see it, just talking about Vienna, and also I'm not going out a lot, but what I hear is that people are out and about. And I'm very happy about that, that, they don't allow themselves to be scared that much, I guess.
Well, it's funny to me because I think the idea is kind of like, I don't know, Star Wars comes to mind, but I guess that's weird, so I don't have to talk about that. But the Titanic, when it hit the iceberg, everybody was experiencing one phenomenon, right? Like, this is happening. Like, no one was doubting the boat sinking. Some people got on their musical instruments and said, we're going to calm everybody down, right? Some people were punching kids in the face and hiding in boats, trying to get, stow away, rich people style, like in the movie or whatever. There's all sorts of people are reacting not only with their karma, but with what they're built for. This gets into astrological charts and stuff. So it's like some people are better during chaotic times. Like you were saying, Alex, that you had a life that was very fast paced, and there's a not that you didn't have this wisdom already, but it's like this is emphasizing a kind of wisdom of all right, you keep your own momentum in spite of the momentum of the world around you, kind of thing. And then other people are starting to realize, hey, I'm being pulled. It sounds like, Alex, like you're not too offended, I guess, or perturbed by the masks and stuff like that. Like, you're like, I can do this, like, whatever. I'm kind of on the same wave where I'm like, whatever, it's just a phase. Hopefully, some people are, we've had guests on where they're like standing up on buses saying, I will not wear a mask. It's very much like a revolutionary moment for them or whatever. So I think everybody's being hit with not only their nature, so their chart, like, what are they, but also like the Titanic is hitting. So everybody's kind of being called to different lessons, even within the same situation. So the lesson for the musicians of the Titanic, it's been an honor to play with you, and we're going to calm people down, even while the water's coming up to our knees, we're still going to play the cello or whatever. It's like, that's a choice. They could freak out, right? But between their karma and all this stuff, they're choosing not to. But that situation, even though it's on the same ship, is very different than Rose and Jack or whatever running around trying to find a way out, and the old people who lie in their bed. If you've seen Titanic, I'm alluding to this James Cameron movie. I'm hoping everybody knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, it seems like the situation's happening, just like you were saying, the astrology's happening. And the way I look at it kind of is like as above, the astrology's happening. It's not like exact, like this happens, so that happens, but it's like there's a script playing out, and it's manifesting in certain energies, and the energies are manifesting on Earth in certain ways, and we have a choice. We've been just such in a trance of culture. Movies like Fight Club get into this, and The Matrix and stuff. For many the past few decades, people have been like, "We're not our jobs. It's not all about money and success." Although the money and success are fine in and of themselves, but it's like we've been all told to get on a rat race, and if you're not making X amount of dollars, you're nobody. If you don't fall in love, you don't have, you shouldn't be here. We've been having to try to prove our existences, I guess, but we're here. Like, we don't have to prove shit. And now it's just a matter of following your heart's desire wisely. And that's everybody's, personal proclivities based on their chart, the reality, however you want to put that. And it seems like we're being given, it's an opportunity is how I'm looking at it. It's a recalibration opportunity. And basically from this point, a lot of people are going to go towards the world they would rather live in. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing in the next couple of years, like more, like anti-mask, hippie, kind of Burning Man type cities popping up, and then other places where they're like, no, you need a microchip to get in here, and we know you're clean, and you're not going to be able to buy food without this fucking card or travel. Like we're going to kind of, it seems like that's the bifurcation. And right now it's people dealing with the internal of that, where there's like, okay, so what does sovereignty mean to me? What does my freedom mean? Am I free in spite of my circumstances? Some people don't feel free unless they're like able to run around without a mask. Some people are free and they can be in, Paul in the Bible was like, I'm in jail, but people in prison, solitary, you can be as free as your mind lets you be, or your heart allows you to be. So it's a tricky time, but at the same time, this is exactly what we've asked for. I mean, that's a presupposition of mine, but it seems like the astrology is such that it's like, well, you wanted to, you've been doing certain things a certain way for a long time, and you've all matured. Basically, like the bell curve has gotten to a certain enough place where we get to start making better decisions. It's funny because in these Richard Rudd positions, stuff like, I tend to be more green and liberal and like, let's save the planet and stuff. And it's like, maybe that's, I mean, this is a weird way to put it, but maybe that's us projecting our short-sightedness onto it. Maybe, and this is a weird way to put it, but it's like, everything's happening for a reason. Like the universe, like there's no mistakes, so it's in harmony always. So even the fact that we're having like even the fact that we're having ecological like issues and stuff like that, it's part of a journey of balancing. Like in a weird way, we're kind of Gaia's follicles or something. So like Earth consciousness created plants and animals, and humans came from animals, or whatever the story goes. And we're kind of expounding further and further out into space. And maybe there's lessons like, it's a weird way to put it. It's like, you don't know what you have until it's gone. Like that's a real wisdom that comes from there. And I'm not saying we have to lose Earth, but I'm thinking that we had to get very close. That's the whole Mayan, like life out of balance. You guys have gone too far, rectify the situation 2012 thing, where it's like, you guys are going to get so close to like losing control that there's a wisdom and a lesson in that moment. Just like there's a wisdom in the chaos of the Titanic ship, but everyone's got kind of different stories playing out, if that makes any sense.
It does. And the question is, we're so close of losing Earth, but isn't the other way around? Isn't it that the Earth and the universe and the stars and the aliens can go on I think they can go on without us, right? But can we go on without the Earth? Well, not at this point.
Right. It seems like we're pretty expendable. Life goes on within or without you, as the Beatles would say. So yeah, it's a moment where I think being grateful, like I've been doing some certain meditations lately, and just being grateful, like it's weird. I'm like, because I don't like Trump particularly personally, but I don't really like Biden either. Like as an American, I don't like Obama. I mean, I don't like politicians at this point. I think they're all shady fucking assholes who just kind of play games and distract people with like headlines or whatever. But I was trying to appreciate each of them and like send them love, and even to think, animals that I'll never meet, like elephants in India and giraffes and the sequoia trees, just shit that's out here. It's like, it's all here happening right now. My attention might not be on it. Like I might not have ever touched a sequoia tree, but it's there. Or I might not have ever, been to the Arctic Circle, but there's Aurora Borealis that's happening. There's even stuff like black holes. It's like that shit fucks my head up. Like I'm like, oh gosh, is that supposed to be happening? Like clearly it is occurring, but is this like a mistake of the universe, or is like, how do I even existentially deal with a black hole, which like shreds up matter and time and space and all this shit? I think that, right? So it's like, I think being grateful kind of leads to a place of equanimity and balance within oneself. And then when you're in that place of balance, you can actually know how to, presuming you're, kind of get centered, then you turn on your heart and you say, what do I really love? Like I'm in the dream. We're not, a lot of the myths we've been telling ourselves is like, you're going to live to 100 and be rich. And everyone's going to, or whatever the modern myth is. And it's like, no one's guaranteed another day. Like I'm glad that I wake up every morning. And we have to kind of, I think we're starting to be responsible. It feels like we were like wild teenagers or something for a while. And it's like teenagers don't understand. They're like, I just want to take the car out and drive really fast and get drunk and get laid. And it's like, all right, well, like now that girl's pregnant and you crashed the car, and now you have an addiction to alcohol. You know what I mean? Like we're getting to the karma of our consequences, which is the whole Saturn, Jupiter conjunction. So but then we can recover from that. Like I think there's still hope. I haven't lost hope, but we have to face the facts. And everybody's facts look a little different. That's the weird part. So some people are like, no, I want to keep, eating McDonald's and surfing the internet all day and looking at porn or whatever, right? There's people on that wave. And then there's people who are like, oh shit, I'm going vegan and I want to do shamanism and I want to, astral project and meet my higher self. That's a totally different crew. Yet we're all still on the same ship. We're still on the Titanic, right? So it's like many people are behaving very differently, but we're all in the movie together. And my hope, I'm coming from more of a Christian background, but even I don't think aliens are going to save us. I don't even know if Jesus is going to return like that. I think at some point people start having a heart shift, because they start realizing it's kind of like I don't know how familiar with Bible stories you are, but like the prodigal son, right? Where it's like this kid in the story, it's like, like this kid's like, oh, I want my money now, Dad, even though you're not dead, give me my inheritance. He takes this, $10,000 check or whatever, runs off to Las Vegas, all you can eat buffets, hookers, coke, whatever, right? He lives a crazy life, and then he finds himself homeless, and he's sitting around and he's like, shit, I guess I'll go back. Like, I think we're kind of at that point where it's like there's a return. We've been a prodigal species, and it's not even that we're evil. It's like it had to get learned this way. Like some lesson, you never know. You don't know what being burned is with until you get burned, and then you don't do it again. I think we're going to learn very valuable lessons, and hopefully we can instill these in our children. I'm not going to have kids, but the future generations. I think automatically kids who are being born now, whether you want to get into crystals and indigo kids and rainbow tribe and all this stuff, but kids are more woke, and I think they're going to handle it very differently than the generations before us. So we should have some kind of like sympathy and empathy, I guess, for the people before us. But at some point, if someone's being senile and crazy, you take the car keys and say, you can't drive anymore. That's kind of what's happening right now. I think there's a shift in the cultural values, although it's a lot stranger to me because I would have expected it to be more. I thought, the world would go hippie and Burning Man and very that way much more than it has. And I think moments like this whole COVID thing are making people realize, like, where are my values? Empress card is ruled by Venus. Venus is all about values. It's like, what do I love? And some people, just where they're at in their spiritual journeys and stuff, and it's not bad or good. Some people are just like, I'm codependent on systems of, I don't know how to, I personally don't know how to grow food. Sovereignty, my sovereignty is pretty limited. I'm quote free within a very constricted realm. So it's like if there was a solar flare, which there was, ironically, and it knocks out all the power, my life is going to be dramatically shit. A lot of people's are, but it's like I'll be very, I won't be very happy because I depend on like a lot, internet and all these things. But life goes on, right? So it's like I'm kind of rambling. I apologize. I know I've been talking quite a bit, but it seems it's like a big. It's like the teenager. I don't have kids, but it's like a teenager where it's like you push the limits. And now you know the consequences of pushing limits, and you're still loved. The universe still loves us. Like we're still in love. Like, But I think that like it's like waking up with a hangover or something. It's like you earned this. Like, what did you expect if you drank like a whole bottle of vodka and had no hydration all night? Like you're gonna have a headache. So now we're having the headache, and we're kind of like And then some people are like, I don't give a shit. Give me another bottle. And then some people are like, let's not do this again. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, totally. And I think there are a lot of people that are not too sure what's happening, and they recognize, oh, I understand what I was doing is not working. What do I do? And what surprises me then when I mention gathering with people I don't know, many of them are in suits, many of them are in corporates. And yet when they come in these, situations of shamanic journey, then they drop whatever, the mask, or for me, what I thought, oh, come on, they're CEO of a big bank and they they show up here, but then they're vulnerable, and then they say, oh, I've been crying all night and I'm not sure what to do. So this is good, I think, for those that are a little bit more experienced with, what do you do when suddenly you start to feel from the heart a lot more? What do you do when you say, actually, I don't want to eat McDonald's every day, but what are the alternatives, right? So for me, there's a positive wave that it's coming up. It's just I feel we need to be getting on top of it a lot quicker than just, one person at the time, so to speak. What are your views, Raphael?
In terms of the development, or in terms of how it can progress? I mean, the real question I was having, because everyone keeps talking about this splitting of the prism and multiple Earths. For me, I mean, even right now, it's kind of hard to imagine, although I know it is true, that there is an extreme variety of parallel reality apparently coexisting upon what we would, in a sense, define the physical Earth right now. Just meaning there are places where there is perfect tranquility and calm. There are places where, people are fighting or even killing each other or whatever. As so many have, outlined these ideas, or we could go the nature route, barefoot, hippie, dancing on the beach, or you go into the technocratic smart city with a chip in your brain. What I'm kind of wondering about is whether these two realities can actually really physically coexist, or whether or not this whole lockdown period, in a sense, has been another opportunity for orientation to each and every one. And there's, of course, infinite variability in the details of, potential reality, as varied as imagination can be. However, as maybe now people are re-emerging or haven't made up their minds whether they want to, stay in contact with their family or keep meeting people, or whether they want to be afraid of everyone and all of these things, that maybe in a sense, after you come out of this 2020, let's say, there are actually already maybe, these differing worlds more palpable or something. Because at least for me, I don't know, maybe this will coexist, but I don't really see it, because the one idea has in a sense, has not the proposition, but the claim for complete authority over everything. There is one side of the spectrum, the way I see it, that is not relenting, that is not stopping until it has complete control. So in a sense, I don't really see that possibility that this could coexist in this fashion along with, let's say, the new Earth. I really see that this would have to go elsewhere. Not saying that we can't have technology and all of the amazing things, but in a sense that it had been pushed the past decades, I don't really see how this can continue on.
Well, that brings on the topic of all these different simulated realities, right? Are we are we in a simulated reality? Are we in the matrix or not? And technology, well, again, how far do you push that chip in the head, right? Because the idea of having a chip in the head was, so that we can have superpowers. But our mind has already superpowers. So why do you need a chip in the head to remind you that chip in the head is really going to numb your superpowers? So it's a tricky, well, for me, again, if I think about it, my mind cannot comprehend it. And the only way to calm myself down is to go into meditation and the earth and grounding, and again, the heart, and say, okay, what makes me feel good? And then take it from there. But otherwise, it is a rabbit hole.
Well, and that's kind of the whole point. And I agree with what you're saying. This is the whole idea of, 0-point meditation, going into the heart, breathing, all of those things, because in a sense, let's say the culture, whatever, has scared many people into, shaming, guilting and everything themselves, hating each other and themselves and all of that. And especially making them believe that they are worthless and they don't have powers and they're on a, flying space rock, randomly generated, and are slowly falling apart, basically, because they're like a machine. That's the image that's conveyed. And then they try and offer, but you can remedy that if you buy into all this nice tech that we have drawn up for you. When in truth, if everyone wouldn't be so amazingly confused and meditate a bit more and commune with others and so on, then they would realize that they have all the capacities that are promised by technologies and more already inherent with themselves. And as I'm even on a very superficial level, let's say, aware of that, I love tech and all of that, and it's all amazing. But at least for me, I never see myself, going the chip route just because it's not effective, it's not efficient, it's just silly. If I know I already have a machine it's
You'd
not
rather
really just a
smoke
machine.
DMT than hook up to a machine, probably.
That's just the most simplistic layer of this. There are all these kinds of cities, as we discussed with Richard Rudd as well. To me, this is, if you want to say that something like a matrix could be built and could be real, then the cities described by Richard Rudd, can be real to the square, or however you call it, yeah, and to the circle as well. So then, it's clear, like, why would I then make myself dependent upon a source of electricity or whatever, or anything external, if I realize I have all those capacities and more within myself, and they are just skills that I can develop. And that's honestly the simple way I see it. And I'm also seeing here that it has a lot to do, of course, with individual choices, but also then, you meet new people, some things become easier. It flows along the path of least resistance if you allow it, again, just by following exactly what you said, Alex, in terms of, I would say, follow your excitement or following your heart. And then to me, yeah, the path is pretty clear, and I'm just observing all of these funny games, whether it's about their contrived way of space exploration or uploading your brain or all of these things. But the way I see it is, it's just a scare and it's a joke. And some people really buy into it, but I think it will change. And again, I'm just curious if those two, let's say, models of life can really coexist. Maybe they can, because I can well imagine the more, let's say, diversified crowd just being, okay, you can totally have your super computerized smart city and play cyborg games, but you can just do it over there. We have enough space for that, I'm sure. But I can't really see it the other way around, that an ideology
Well, that's what Corey
based
got
on
into with like human
conformity and
zoos.
control. Yeah, right. But I'm just saying that if it were the other way around, let's put it like this, just to make the analogy clear and make it simple. So if you would say the brain leads, just as it has until now, you have a control conformity-based system, and they will seek you out anywhere if they can and try to conform and control you. That's the only thing they know, that if the brain would lead. I can't see that being sustained on this planet any longer. What I can see is the heart leading, meaning those that are more into, unity, diversity, and love. And if that leads, then I could even see, and I would be the first one to agree to that, let's make a nice island where people literally can, chip themselves up or whatever they want, as long as they don't start wanting to have supremacy and exactly mandating it upon others. That's always the very, very simple demarcation line, whether someone tries to mandate something upon you or kind of force you into something, maybe also somewhat subtle. That's always the clear line where not really free will is being infringed upon, but there is all this illusion and scarcity and so on. And I think on a collective scale, in a sense, we've processed through a lot of that. I'm pretty sure there'll be some more, but at least for me, I'll also be done with it soon enough.
Something we have to remember, though, is we're talking a lot about mentality, like groupthink and mentality. So it's like, which way do we think it's going to go? We have to get back to the heart in the sense that it's like, and this is tricky because I think we orient the multiverse with our hearts. So it's like there's a million is a small number. There's an infinite number of parallel realities, and what your heart is attuned to, what you fear, what you believe in, what you hope for, puts you into a trajectory for a certain bubble in that multiverse. So in a sense, there's always going to be, not always, but there's going to be like differentiation, like polarity, right? So there's there's going to be reptilians and there's going to be Pleiadians or whatever, right? There's going to be like, people expressing punk rock, fuck the machine, and then people saying, I run a corporation and I employ many people, or, whatever, variations of degrees like that. But I think what we're being called to do right now is, in a weird way, it's almost like a docking, like a spaceship, like almost like that Valerian thing, where it's like we're choosing which universe we're docking into. And our hearts are kind of the mechanism for doing that. So, and I don't want to be naive and just say like, a dream, wish your way into something else, but it's like we're doing that unconsciously anyway. So we might as well orient ourselves more consciously through kind of heart-centered stuff. Everybody's doing it anyway. So if your heart is all about plugging into a matrix, you're going to find yourself in that reality. And if your heart's all about, open air markets and like, vegan whatever, like you're going to be on that reality. And the weird part I think we're having to realize is and this is the hardest part, being a human with an ego, but it's like none of them, and this is hard to do because we tend to be like, oh, the people who are, I mean, I would say people who litter are assholes or, whatever. It's like, no, everything, it's the universe experiencing itself through every possible way. So some algorithms are going to look, some people are going to have a very Hellraiser, gothic, S&M club thing. And then some people are going to be like, flower children. And some people are going to be suit and ties. Some people are going to be ravers. Like it's amazing when you look out there. That's what I was kind of saying with the black holes and Obama and, koala bears and everything. It's like, just look at it and be like, wow, I'm here now. And I've asked to be here. And where this kind of goes, I think depends on where we're tuned to. And how we tune isn't with our heads, although that's kind of what tells us what's going on in a sense. Like we said earlier, the thing driving the canoe in the multiverse, it seems, is the heart. So we have to just resonate where we want to be, and have, like where Bashar says, have no expectations. So it's not like if I'm like, oh, well, if there's people who are transhumanists, that means I'm in the wrong universe. It's like, no, you're exactly where you need to be, but it's like, how are you resonating? That's your responsibility. You have, your responsibility is yourself. And that's what personal work is, shadow work and all that stuff. We're in a collective shadow work phase right now. I mean, earlier, Alex, you were saying like, you're helping people who like you basically have it all together on the world standards, but they're like kind of falling apart, in shamanistic groups or whatever. It's like, that's why we've been doing this. I mean, I haven't been doing it for that long, but that's why there's a few decades worth of soldiers ready to basically help people win a spiritual war. In a sense, like I'm not done, I don't imagine, but it's like Dark Nights of the Soul, psychedelic journeys, all this kind of shadow work, all this stuff that's preparing us individually to be able to help people as they en masse start shifting into this insane Dark Night of the Soul collectively, and that's kind of where we are. And I think it actually starts improving astrologically. That it's not over, but it's like these people are choosing their teams, if you want to put it that way, and then they walk forward in those ways. And I just hope I'm not, getting hauled off to like a modern Auschwitz because I didn't take a fucking chip or whatever. That's, obviously no one wants that. So, but it's happened in history before, and history tends to repeat itself. So we have to just be using wisdom and compassion coming from the heart, and the knowledge and basically the wisdom of the heart is what leads us forward no matter what. Are we being conscious or unconscious of that? If we're living from the heart in an unconscious way, we might not give a shit if people we consider that our enemies are, imprisoned or whatever, treated poorly. But if we're coming from a place of conscious heart, saying they are me in another form, I asked to be here, they asked to be here, we're playing this crazy dance, I should have no expectations, like this is a jam session, and we're all improvising based off of a lot of things, karma and genetics and, hopes and fears and all sorts of stuff, that we can sit back and look back at the painting and say, wow, and then hopefully forge through as our characters in the dream better, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Very well said. And I would like to add to that also, you dream your dream, and when you bring consciousness into the heart, and I think, we're here on planet Earth, so there is a sense of reverence, at least I feel we need to have to Mother Earth per se, right? So to make it very practical, I think when you're in that space, maybe like you mentioned at the beginning, Jim, why the F do you want to go to Mars? And with all the work that is implied, all the technology and all that, when actually we're children of the Earth, at least for now, right? So I think that would be a world that is maybe slower, maybe more in balance on the technology rather than this constant race for what, and be, a bit more in harmony as well, rather than chasing something that is beyond us at this point.
I guess shareholders are why people want to go to Mars. I mean, curiosity too. People, want to leave their tribe and they go, oh, let's go across the ocean. And now they're like, well, there's no oceans. Let's go out there. So it seems logical at some level, but at some level also like movies like Aliens and shit like that, where it's like, we're taking our drama with us. And until we do a better job of cleaning up our own shit, like it's really irresponsible to just expand our boundary, I feel. But I don't know if there's ever a perfect state. Like we're never going to just get to this place where like, all right, now we're perfectly mature. Now let's go explore space. So it's tricky. It's riding a bike is falling gracefully from one side to the other. I think we're kind of doing that, and we're entering a new phase, a new aeon potentially, Age of Aquarius kind of thing. So it's like we just on it. Bottom line, I think, is know yourself, and how you know yourself is through internal gnosis, like going in, stilling the mind, opening the heart, right, and then find the people you want to be participating with. Try to be accepting of all the animals on the ark of Noah or whatever. Like life is very diverse. So, a whale is not an owl, so they shouldn't act the same. Just like, a capitalist is not an anarchist. They're not going to act the same. We should be, finding the people we most resonate with and then just trying to plot through this dream the best we can. I mean, that's all we can do. Otherwise, it's going to seem like a whole lot more hellish and scary if we don't do it like that.
Beautifully put. Yes, totally. You, Raphael?
I think the way you expressed it is proper. It's all about this reorientation. These are things, in a sense, in my view, of course, we all have chosen, we all, to varying degrees, have been prepared for, and we do not present ourselves with any challenge which we are not ultimately able to face. If we are willing to in that moment depends. However, usually resisting those ideas only results in more pain and suffering. Therefore, as always, facing your fears and, in a sense, remagnetizing yourself, and, as I said initially, having the proper authority. And that is nothing outside. That is ultimately also nothing mental. In my experience, and it seems you agree, it is this idea of excitement. It is joy ultimately, and it is so easy that we may easily miss it within a 2+ hour conversation, even though we're talking about it. And this again really is a realm that's, in a sense, beyond logic, and it's also great because then all you need there is a simple intuition or a simple decision, and then the mental concepts, they are just the form that a decision that's taken by the heart can take. So that's the way I see it. That's the way I've been rolling with it. That's why, at least for me, it's been pretty easy to orient also in these times.
Disney's Cinderella comes to mind. A dream is a wish your heart makes. So it's like, y'all, let's just dream better. Like, what is your heart wishing for? Don't overthink it. Don't be naive. Like we're saying, balance it with wisdom, but also you got to follow your heart, because, like, kind of like in Braveheart, he's like, it might make a lot of sense not to fight because your ego is saying you're going to get your limbs chopped off and die and not leave this battlefield. But, when you're an old man lying in bed, wouldn't you rather trade all these days just to, like, go with what your passion was and what you thought was true with your heart? And even if it cost your life, right? So I hope people feel, emboldened to follow their dream from their heart. And if we do that, like, you just have to accept the consequences and know you did your best. That's all we can do.
Yeah, and I called my company Breathing Heart, and not many people see it or feel it, but for me, it's really to remember that our heart is breathing, is alive, and you're happy and and joyful when you feel your heart alive. And even if you feeling sadness sometimes, and I say sadness, I don't say pain, I choose the words, you're still alive, right? I think the problem is, as human, and that's when we become machine, is when you don't feel anything anymore. Then something is, then you're not human, you become a machine. But as long as your heart is alive with crying and laughing and enjoy and dancing and singing and anger, then you're alive. And then, you can, keep it if you like it, or change your circumstances to make it more joyful if that's what you're after.
That's what's up. So, are there any kind of parting thoughts? We'll have to get you back on, Alex. But in terms of today's episode, are there any kind of parting thoughts or any projects you're working on that you want to tell people about?
Well, I really want to share and spread the message more of going into the heart and live from the heart. Just whatever you're doing, whether you're thinking of a relationship, whether you're thinking of your own relationship with your body, whether you're thinking your relationship with nature. I think it's very easy to stop and ask yourself, what is my heart saying? And for me, it's been a very useful, practical tool to follow. And I see it in children, it works really well, because generally, if their heart is open, they're going to do something and be talkative about it and smile about it. And if it's something they don't enjoy, then the heart, it's not there. And even when they cry, that there's some joy in it. We had this experience of losing a kitten, and even though we were crying when we were doing the rituals, and there was joy, the heart was open. So I think this is where the human can be very special, and we shouldn't just give up on having this experience.
I'm with you on that. Being human, it's hard, but it's a privilege, and we asked for it, and it's a real unique position to be in this cosmos. So we should value it and value, everybody else's experience as much as we value ours. So thank you so much for coming on today, Alex. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope that you have a good holiday season. Buckle up for this solstice. But I think you'll be fine. I mean, we're all going through it, so here it comes. So, Raphael, any parting thoughts?
Thank you, Alex. Always great having you on. And to me, talking about all of these things, as I tried to explain numerous times already, these are really things that can be talked about as we are doing, but it's something you have to experience and something everyone knows. So just either of you said it, dancing, laughing, singing, whatever makes your heart sing,
or crying.
And that's when you're on the right path. That's also completely in line with the also mental concepts of Bashar, because excitement can be the driving engine and the organizing principle of your own life. And then you are within this frequency bandwidth of love, of unity consciousness, of connectedness, of synchronicity. And then things may flow much, much easier than if one tries to plan and dissect and so on and so forth, even though that's the great fun that the mind has. And it's amazing. It's just good, again, to remember the proper order and to remind oneself of the, let's say, ultimate authority of the heart.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And lots of love, everybody.
Take it easy.
Thanks, everyone, for joining and for listening. Enjoy yourselves.
Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk.